We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Dalet Amud Beis in Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 64b. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the line in the Mishnah which said that generally speaking, the Kohen would ascend on the eastern side of the ramp of the Mizbeach, and then he would go around the entire Mizbeach and then come down from the southwest side of the Mizbeach. But there were some exceptions. For example, by Yayin Nesach, by the libations of the wine. So there he would go directly up the west side of the Mizbeach to the southwest in order to do the Yayin Nesach. Also an exception by the Ola Sa'of. Also, he would go directly up to the southwest corner of the Mizbeach. And the Gemara in the previous summit explained the reason why by Yayin Nesach he would go directly up the southwest side of the Mizbeach is because if he would go up on the east side of the ramp and go all around the Mizbeach, then the wine might absorb the smoke from the Mizbeach, and that's possible if the wine is mu'ushan. If it's smoked, then it's going to be disqualified. And so therefore, again, he'd go directly up the west side to the southwest side of the Mizbeach. And the Gemara in the previous summit asked a question from a Mishnah in Meseches Talmud. It was talking about the Kohen Gadol doing the libation, and there it says that he does go up the east side of the Mizbeach and goes all around the Mizbeach until he gets to the southwest corner and receives the wine for the libation. And so the Gemara now continues and answers the reason why over there it's not a problem of Yayin Mu'ushan is because Hakafa Beregel, he was actually just going around, walking around the Mizbeach, but he wasn't holding the wine in his hand in that situation. Rashi explains Hakafa Beregel Ve'ein Hayayin Biyado, the wine wasn't in his hand. Ula Mitzvah Bialma, he did that as a mitzvah. Memnei Shakol Ha'olin L'shar Devarim, since everyone else who ascends the Mizbeach, Ponin Liyaminu Makifin, they turn to the right and they go all around. V'zeh Afhula and he also is going up to burn. Lafikach, therefore, makif uva l'mokum shemenaschin sham. That's why he would go around the whole mizbeach till he got to the area of the libation. V'nosnin lo yayin l'nasachin. They would give him the wine again for the libation. Avol shar kohanim, but other kohanim, not the Kohen Gadol, shazocha b'nesachim b'payis, that the way that they would get to do the nesachim was by drawing the lots. So lo zocha la'avoda achera. So he wasn't doing any other avoda. So olav hayayin biyado. So the other Kohen would go with the wine in his hand, upana l'smol, and he would therefore turn to the left, v'chozer ala akiv k'demaslis, and then turn back on his heels and not walk around the entire mizbeach. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Dekonami, we can infer it from the precise language of that Mishnah in Talmud as well, the Katani, because it says over there, Nosnin lo, Yayin l'nasech, they gave him the wine for the libation, Velo Katani Omer lo nasech, and it doesn't say over there that they said to him to pour the wine for the libation. So Shema Mina, so you see that when he was walking around the Mizbeach, when the Kohen Gadol was going around the Mizbeach, he was not holding the wine. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Kala Olin Mizbeach, everybody who goes up to the Mizbeach, Olin Derech Yamin, they go up on the right side. Talking about the right side over here, it means the east side of the ramp. V'yarden Derech Smol, and then they come down on the left side, that would be the west side of the ramp. Olin Derech Mizrach, again they go up the east. V'yarden Derech Ma'ariv, and they go down the west. Chutz min ha'ola l'shlosha devarim halalu, except for those again who go up for these three things. Sha'olim Derech Ma'ariv, where they go up on the west side. V'yarden Derech Ma'ariv, and they come down on the west side. Olin Derech Yamin, they come up on the right side. Now the Gemara is about to ask, that seems to be inaccurate because the west side is really the left side. Here it says the right side. V'yarden Derech Yamin, and they go down the right side. Again, it would seem to be the left side. And so the Gemara immediately asks, Derech Yamin, what are you talking about here on the right side? Derech Smolu, that would be the left side. Again, someone facing the Mizbeach, the west side of the ramp, is going to be the left side of the ramp. And the Gemara says, Amar Ravina says, Tani Smol, the way it should say in this Bryce is it should say the left side. Rava says, Ma Yamin, when it says over here right at the end of the Brisa, it means Yamin de Mizbeach. It means the right of the Mizbeach. Umay Smol, and when it calls that same side the left, Smol de Gavra. It's referring to the left side of the person who is facing the Mizbeach. The Gemara says, Vinisni o idi v'idi de Mizbeach o idi v'idi de Gavra. Why not be consistent? Either always say Mizbeach or always go by the perspective of the person. And the Gemara says Kasha. The Gemara leaves that as a difficulty. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Chatos ha'of, the bird carbon chatos, ketzad hayanasis, what was the procedure? Hayamolek es rosha mimul arpa, he would do the malika by the nape of the neck. Ve'eno mavdil, he wouldn't separate the head from the neck. Umazim idam al kir hamizbeach, he would sprinkle from his blood on the wall of the mizbeach. Shiyori hadam, the remnant of the blood, hayamismatza al yisod, would be squeezed onto the yisod, to the base of the mizbeach. Ve'en la mizbeach elodama, the mizbeach would only get the blood of the chatos ha'of, of the kula la kohanim, and all of the rest would go to the kohanim. Rashi explains, ve'eno mavdil means harosh min haguf. He wouldn't separate the head of the bird from the body of the bird. Elo simen echad levado molik. When he did the malika, he would only cut one simen of the neck, of the throat. Tichsib baz, it's written, umolak es rosho mimul arpo, velo yavdil. It says in the pasuk, he does the malika but doesn't separate. It means to say, he just does one simen. Uva'akol shochten yalfinan de v'simen echad hu. It's learned in Chulin that it's one simen. Umazen, then he sprinkles. That means oches be'of atzma umaze. He would hold the bird itself in order to sprinkle the blood. And then the Mishnah says, haya mismatze, again squeeze the blood to the yesod of the mizbeach, shemakif umiskarev beis malikasul the mizbeach. He would bring the area of the malika of the bird close to the mizbeach, v'dochko bekir, and press it against the wall, v'hadam mismatzem v'yored li yesod, and the blood would be squeezed out and go to the yesod, to the base of the mizbeach. Sharei lamata min hachuti nasis, because this was all done below the chut hasikra, was done on the lower half of the mizbeach. Uchnisas hasovev lamala heimenu, the sovev, the ledge, was above. That's why it was dripping down to the base of the mizbeach and not dripping down to the ledge that was on the mizbeach. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Vihiza midam hachatos. It says that he's going to sprinkle from the blood of the chatos. It means miguf hachatos. It means to say that he's not using a vessel. It's coming from the body of the chatos itself. Haketzat haso oches barosh uveguf umaze. He would hold the head and the body of the bird and sprinkle the blood. Rashi explains, miguf shel chatas shelo yazel lo bekli v'lo be'etzva. He would not sprinkle with a vessel or with his finger. Ela oches ba'of atzma umaze. He would hold the bird itself and sprinkle the blood. Al kir hamizbeach. It says again on the wall of the mizbeach. V'lo al kir hakevesh, and not on the wall of the ramp. V'lo al kir heichol, not on the wall of the heichol. V'lo al kir ulam, not on the wall of the ulam, of the entrance hall. Ve'eza, and what are we talking about specifically? Zekir hatachton. This refers to the lower wall of the mizbeach, the lower half of the mizbeach. Oeno ela kir ha'elyon, or maybe you'll argue it should be the upper wall of the mizbeach. V'dinu, and that would be logical. Uma behema, because if we find by an animal that's a carbon, she'olasa lemata, where the ola of a behema is on the lower half of the mizbeach, and chatasa lemala, and a chatas behema is the upper half. So by a bird, she'olasa lemala, where an ola is the upper half of the mizbeach, eno din shechatasa lemala. So shouldn't it be logical to say that the chatas should also be the upper half of the mizbeach? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, "V'hanishar badam yimotze el yesod hamizbeach." It says that whatever's remaining in the blood is squeezed to the base of the mizbeach, and so kir shehashirayin shalo mismatzim liyesod. We're talking about the wall where that remnant would be squeezed to the base of the mizbeach, and again that has to be the lower half, otherwise it would go to the ledge. Ve'ezen, what are we talking about? Again, is zakir hatachton. That's talking about the lower half of the wall. But the Gemara asks, why not do the sprinkling above and then do the rest? Do it below. Maybe you have two steps to this. Amar Rava says, Miksiv Yamse. Does it say Yamse? Yimotze Ksiv. It says Yimotze. It's written Yimotze. To Memela Mashma. That's Mashma. That's understood that it happens automatically. Rashi explains, Behema she'olasa lamata kedamna beparakama. We say by an animal the ola is lamata, that we say in the first parak. D'chsib b'chatos behema machate osa dama lamala. By the chatos it's lamala, it's above. V'yein acheres dama lamala, the other is not above. Chatosa lamala, the chatos is above. The karnos ksivi ba, because it says karnos, it says the corners, the horns of the mizbeach. So by a bird show lasso lamala, where the ola is above. Kediyolaf lakaman bepirkan, as we're going to learn later on in the parak. And then the Gemara said, Shahashirayim shalo, the Shirayim have to go, they have to be mismatzim liyasod, they have to be squeezed to the yasod. Keshamaza hadam, what that means is really when he sprinkles the blood, shoses umismatza liyasod, it's going to drip down to the yasod. So clearly, ve'ezezeh kiratachton, that must be the lower wall. Pa'amim shu mismatze lasovev, keshosei lamala min hasovev. If he's going to do the upper half of the mizbeach, it's going to drip down to the sovev, to the ledge. To min hachut ad hakarnos kir ha'elyon, because from the chut hasikra till the corners is the upper part. Avol kir hatachton, but the kir hatachton, the lower part of the wall, kulo lamata min hasovev, that's all below the sovev. Shahachut lamata min hasovev ama, because the chut hasikra is one ama below the sovev, one ama below the ledge. And then the Gemara asks, "V'navid me'iloi hazaasa yasa lamala," He should do the sprinkling above, and then do the squeezing below. Why not have the application of the blood above, and then the mitzvah, the squeezing, will be on the lower half? And to that the Gemara said, Miksiv yamsa, does it say yamsa? Imotze ksiv, yav ksiv yamsa, have a mashma, shemazir sakoin sheyachzor, v'yamsa achar hazaf. It would have written it in that fashion, yamsa. So then we're talking about the squeezing that takes place after the sprinkling. Hashta dechsiv yimotze, but when it's written yimotze, mashmanami le'inyan hazah, that also can be understood about the sprinkling, the application of the blood, to memela yadam mitzoi etzel yisod, that the memela, the blood is then going to drain and go down to the yisod, to the base of the mizbeach. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Zutra Bar Tuvia Amar Rav. Rav Zutra Bar Tuvia says, the Rav says, Ketzad molkin chatas ha'of. What is the malika procedure by the chatas ha'of, by the bird chatas? Ochez gapov b'shtei etzbos. He holds its wings with 2 fingers. Ushtei raglayim b'shtei etzbos. He holds its 2 feet with 2 fingers. Umosech tzavora al rochev godlo. And he spreads out the neck along the width of his thumb. Umolkin, he does the malika. B'masnisa taught, and the Bryce it's taught, tzipara milavar, that the bird is actually on the outside of the hand. Ochez gapov b'shtei etzbos. He holds the wings with 2 fingers. Ushnei raglayim b'shtei etzbos, and 2 feet with 2 fingers. Umosech tzavaro al rochav shtei etzbaosav, and then he stretches out its neck along the width of the 2 fingers. Umolek, and does the malika. V'zu avoda kasha shebemikdash, and this is the difficult avoda that's done in the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara says, Zuhi v'sulo, this is the difficult one and no other difficult ones. V'oika kmitza v'chafina, what about kmitza, which is the fistful by the Karban Mincha? Chafina is the fistful by the incense. Those are difficult. Elaima rather say, Zu avoda kasha, this is one of the difficult avodos. Me avodos kasha shebemikdash, from the various difficult avodos in the Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ola sa'of, the bird Ola, Ketzad nasis, what's its procedure? Ola lakevesh, he goes up the ramp, Ufana lasoviv, and turns by the ledge. Bolo lekeren dromis mizrachis, he comes to the southeastern corner. Hayamolek es rosha mimol arpa, he does the malika by the area of the nape of the neck. Umavdil, and there he does separate, he does 2 simonim. Umitza es dam al kir mizbeach, he squeezes the blood on the wall of the mizbeach. Natal es harosh, he takes the head of the bird. Vehikif beis malikaso lemizbeach, and he brings the area of the malika close to the mizbeach. Vesafko b'melech, he absorbs the remaining blood with salt. V'zarko al gabe ha'ishim, and then he throws the head onto the fire. Bolo leguf, then he brings the guf, the body of the bird. V'heser es hamorav es hanotza, he removes the crop and the feathers. V'es b'nei hamayayim, and the intestines, hayotz and imam, which comes out with them. V'eshlichon lebeis hadeshen, and he throws them to the beis hadeshen where the ashes are. Shisa v'lo hivdil, he rips the bird but does not separate it lengthwise. V'im hivdil kosher, but if he does separate it, it's still kosher. Sofko b'melech, he absorbs the remaining blood with salt. V'zarko al gabe ha'ishim, and then he throws the body onto the fire. Lo heser hamora v'lo hanotza, v'yas b'nei ha'mayayim, if he doesn't remove the crop and the feathers and the intestines, hayotzin imam, which come out with them, v'lo sofko b'melech, let's say he doesn't absorb the blood with salt, kol shashina ba me'achar shemitza es dama, any change that he makes, any deviation after he's already squeezed the blood, kasheira, that is still kosher. And the Mishnah continues, Hivdil b'chatos, let's say he separates by the chatos, meaning to say when he does the malika, he separates the head from the body, or velo hivdil be'ola, let's say he doesn't separate the head from the body by the ola, possible in those situations it is disqualified. Mitzah es dam harosh, if he squeezes the blood of the head, velo mitzah dam haguf, and doesn't squeeze the blood of the body, psula, it is disqualified. Dam haguf, if he squeezes the blood of the body, velo mitzah dam harosh, and doesn't squeeze the blood of the head, ksheir, it is still kosher. Chatas ha'of shemolka shelo lishma, let's say the bird carbon chatas, the malika is done not lishma, not for the sake of that carbon. Mitzah dama shelo lishma, or let's say he squeezes the blood shelo lishma, or let's say lishma v'shelo lishma, he has a lishma intention and then a lo lishma intention, o shelo lishma v'lishma, or a shelo lishma intention and then a lishma intention. Possible in those cases it's disqualified, because by chatas shelo lishma is a disqualification. Ola sa'of kashera, by an ola sa'of, by the bird ola, it's still kosher. Shelo lishma is not a disqualification. Uvilvad shelo also labaylam l'shem chova, but it would not fulfill whatever obligation the owner needs to fulfill. Echad chatos ha'of v'echad olas ha'of, whether we're talking about a chatos ha'of or an olas ha'of, shemolkan v'shemitzas daman, let's say he does the malika or he squeezes the blood, lechol davar shadarko lechol, to eat what's supposed to be eaten. By the chatos ha'of, it's supposed to be eaten. Ulahakter davar shadarko lahakter, or to burn something that's supposed to be burned, for example, by the ola, which is burned. So if he does those things chutz l'makomo, and he has an intention outside of the proper place, so then pasul ve'ein bo kares, so that kind of intention creates a disqualification, but is not kares. But chutz l'zmano, but if he has the intention that he's going to again eat or burn outside of the proper time, so then pigel, that's what's called pigel, v'chayav and all of kares, and there's a liability to kares, uvilvad sheyakriv hamater k'mitzvaso, and that's true as long as the matter is done properly, as the permitter, if the permitter is done properly. Keitzad karev hamater k'mitzvaso, what would be the example where the permitter was done properly? So molak b'shtika, for example, let's say he did the malika in silence, he had no particular intention, umitza hadam chutz lizmano, and then the squeezing of the blood was with an intention outside the proper time. Molak chutz lizmano, or he did the malika with an intention outside of the proper time. Umitza hadam b'shtika, and he squeezed the blood in silence with no intention either way. Molak umitza hadam chutz lizmano, let's say he did both with the intention of chutz lizmano, both the malika and the squeezing of the blood. Zeu shakarav hamater k'mitzvah. So in all of these cases, the permitter was done properly, and therefore that intention of chutz lizmano makes it pigel. Keitzad lo karav matter k'mitzvah. So what would be an example where the matter was not done properly, and so it would not be pigel? That would be, for example, molak chutz l'mekomo. Let's say the malika was done with an intention of consuming chutz l'mekomo outside the proper place, and then mitzah hadam chutz l'zmano, then the squeezing of the blood, the intention was outside the proper time. O shemolak chutz l'zmano, or the malika was done with an intention outside the proper time. O mitzah hadam chutz l'mekomo, and the squeezing of the blood was with an intention outside the proper place. O shemolak o mitzah hadam chutz l'makomo, or he did the malika and squeezed the blood with an intention outside of the proper place. And Rashi explains, Ola bakevesh, again by the ola sa'of, he goes up the ramp, lefisha nasis lamala, because that's done on the upper half of the mizbeach, kidi alfinan begemara, as the Gemara will learn out. Bolo lekeren jeromis mizrachis, he comes to the southeastern corner, kida amran shakrova lebeis hadeshen, as we said earlier, it has to be near the area of the beis hadeshen. Umavdil b'shnei simonim, and again by the ola sa'of, he separates, he's doing the malika on two simonim of the throat, kediyolef v'akol shochten, as is learned down in akol shochten. Arpa gova harosh mul arpa lemata letzad ha'agafayim mul haroa esaor. If you're talking about the part that sees the nape of the neck, he just does it a little below the nape of the neck. The nape of the neck, that's the back area of the neck. V'hikef es beis malikaso lemizbeach, and then he brings that area of the malika close to the mizbeach. Somcho v'dochko bekir, he brings it close, pushes it up against the wall, kedesha yismatza hadam, in order that the blood will be squeezed out. Safko b'melach, and then he absorbs remaining blood with the salt. Mekancho b'melach hanimtza b'rosh ha-mizbeach, he wipes it with the salt that's found at the top of the mizbeach. Mora is zefek, again the mora refers to the crap. Notza, that refers to the feathers. Shenotel ha'or shekeneged hazefek b'notzasa, he takes the skin that corresponds, that's by the crop, with the feathers, im hazefek, together with the crop. And Rashi continues, shisa haguf bein agofeh, he rips the body lengthwise between the wings. And then the Mishnah said, Hivdil b'chatos b'malikasa, let's say by the chatos, by the malika, he does separate the head from the body. Shemolek shnei simonim, he does do two simonim. O lo hivdil b'ola, or let's say he doesn't separate by the ola, which you're supposed to separate by the ola. Shemalka b'simen echad, let's say he just does one siman by the malika. So pasul, that's disqualified. T'chol shinai shu lifnei avodos adam psulos, because any change, any deviation before the avod of the blood is a disqualification. Over Gemara mefarish time, and the Gemara will explain the reason. And again, then he had in mind lechol davar shadarko lechol, to eat something which is supposed to be eaten. That refers to the chatos ha'of, the bird chatos is eaten, and shadarko lahaktir, something that is meant to be burned, is the olas ha'of. That's the olas ha'of, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Amud Aleph.